Hello everyone, Couch Tomato here. Today I just have a quick video. It's meant to be a guide for making your own chess variant, and the reason I'm doing this is we're actually hosting a variant design contest in PyChess right now, and the theme of this contest is a variant that uses regions. And to make the best of it, you really need to know how to make a variants.ini configuration so that FairyStockfish can run it. And obviously the main reason for that is because these variants use FairyStockfish because the winner will be featured on the PyChess site. So I have up here my own variants.ini file opened up in Notepad. And you can either create one from scratch or you can download one from GitHub, either from FairyStockfish or from PyChess. They both have variants.ini files that you can use. And to illustrate how it works, I have up here my configuration for Schism chess, which actually isn't completely working well, but the main reason is because I actually have everything I want to show in this one configuration. So starting at the very top, you'll notice that I start this line with a hashtag. So anything that has a hashtag at the start of it means that it isn't coded. It's basically free commentary. So for example, this line, Empress, this line for Varang, these are just basically messages for anyone reading this code so that they understand what it means. And it helps you keep your thoughts organized. So you can see down here at the bottom, I have this section called rules, and I describe all the rules followed by the code that does that. All right, so that's the hashtag. The actual true first line of this is this line in brackets. The first word in the brackets is the name of your variant, and you could actually do something like this, and that's the bare minimum you need. So here I'm defining a variant called Schism. I also have this thing over here called :chess. And what this :chess does is it basically uses the standard chess game as a template. So chess has an 8x8 board with pawns, knights, rooks, bishops, kings, and queens all defined for you, as well as promotion rules. So if your game is a lot like chess, then it makes a lot of sense to use this to call back chess and just make the changes that actually matter. Similarly, if you have a game that's more based off shogi or one based off xiangqi, then in that case, you can just use this colon to say :shogi or :xiangqi and work from there. If you don't use the colon at all, you have to define everything from scratch. Okay, so the next most obvious thing is defining piece names. So FairyStockfish actually comes with a bunch of predefined pieces, some of the most common piece types that you'll see. And so, for example, here's one of them, the Chancellor, which is a knight and rook hybrid. So this line is Chancellor equals E, and what this does is define the notation saying that Chancellor goes by the letter E, and in this case I used E because the name I use for it is Empress. If you're defining chess from scratch, you might do something like bishop equals B because we use the letter B for bishop. But in this case, I don't even need to say this because again, I've already called in the chess definitions. Okay, so moving down, I defined the soldier. Soldier is actually the soldier from xiangqi. And then over here, now we get into something interesting. This is custom piece 1. And then I have a bunch of custom pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I actually have a lot of these. And then here, you see this part of the code, A:, blah, 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 blah. So A is basically the notation you're assigning to it, just like I assigned V for soldier. And then everything to the right of the colon is Betsa notation. So Betsa notation is a whole different deal, and I'm not going to go into that in this video. You can ask more about it in Discord. You could also look it up on different websites, including chessvariants.com. They have a whole library of different pieces, and hopefully they give the Betsa notation. Another good reference is Wikipedia. And if you look at the webpage for fairy chess pieces, they'll give you the Betsa notation for most of them. FairyStockfish is pretty robust in terms of Betsa, but it doesn't do everything. So if you're thinking of something more wild, just ask about it. But in general, most types of pieces that you need will be able to get covered. And if it's not able to be covered by Betsa, then chances are you're thinking of something that's way too complicated for this contest. Okay, and so for this piece in particular, don't be too concerned about how complicated it is. The actual definition for a pawn is quite complicated because they have double steps embedded in them. They attack differently than how they move, and they don't move symmetrically, front and back. So there's all these little modifiers you have to add to it. For most people, you won't have to deal with complex bets and notation. This one is much simpler here for what I call the cataphract. So this one is simple. This is W, which means a wazir. The N is a knight. So it moves as a wazir and knight. But this N over here, if I recall correctly, this is a lamed knight. So basically, like in Shang-Chi, the horse is lamed where it can't jump over a piece. So that's what the N does. Here is the trebuchet. I define it as T, and this is a PR. Again, the lowercase letter is a modifier. The capital R means it's a rook. So basically, this modifier lets it move like a cannon. Anyways, I won't get into any more details on Betsa again because that's a different topic. So those are all the piece definitions I have. Next, I start coding some definitions about the board and the rules governing the board. And there's one thing here, promotion region white. One thing to keep in mind is that our definitions are case sensitive. So for FairyStockfish, your first letter is almost always lowercase, and then every word after that starts with an uppercase letter. So if your code is messed up, one of the first places to look is your capitalization over here. So here I'm defining all the squares on the board that white can promote its pawns in, and the asterisk just means any square. So if I wanted to, I could say A1, B1, C1, D1, E1, etc. Or again, A, B, C, D, E, etc. are the file, and 1 is the rank. And the reason I did it this way is actually I wasn't sure if I could just define it as star star. So what I did was just define all 8 ranks like that. I could have also done A star, B star, C star, and it would have done the same thing. And the reason I have it like this is because white can actually promote anywhere. It's one of the special features of this unique asymmetric army. The black side is actually the traditional chess side, and so they can only promote at the opposite rank, and that's star 1. So remember, black is on the 8th and 7th ranks, and white is on the 1st and 2nd ranks, so that's why it's star 1 for black. In traditional chess, it would look something like this, star 8, star 1. Okay, here's just another setting, piece promotion on capture. That's unique to the white side, where basically a few pieces have to capture a piece to promote. Okay, this next line is pretty important, and it's regarding piece promotions. Most of us are going to design variants that have promotions, and in FairyStockfish, there's actually 2 different types of promotions. One is your standard chess type, where your pawn promotes to a catalog of promotions. And I believe the code for that is promotion piece types, and something like, I have to double check if you could say white and black, but I think you can. And then you can say, in the case of standard chess, you could promote to a queen, a knight, a rook, and a bishop, and you just list them out like that. I don't have this here because, again, I called back to chess, so promotion piece types is already defined, and I don't have an extra line for that. But this promoted piece type, which is different by like 1 letter, is very different. This is shogi type promotion, in which one piece has 1 unique promotion, and you can kind of go back and forth on them. So T will promote to G when it gets to the promotion zone. V promotes to W, A promotes to Y, and M promotes to F. It's all 1-to-1. You can't have one piece to promote to many things, and you can't have a chain of promotions like in Pokemon where step 1 promotes to step 2, which promotes to step 3. It doesn't work that way. And then this also handles piece demotions, and that's something you'll see in Kyoto Shogi, for example. The next line over here is actually pretty important, and this is the mobility region. And here you could define mobility regions for anything. You could say mobility region right rook, and you could say, oh, the right rook could only move in star 1, star 2, and star 3, and it's locked in those 3 ranks, which would make it a very limited rook. But the reason why I bring up this specific thing is because the theme of this contest is regions, and locking pieces into specific regions or even specific squares will be a big part of this contest. And if you want to make this fancy, you could have like diagonals, for example. This is not a diagonal piece, but maybe I'll say like you wanted region away bishop, and I'll say like a1, b2, c3, d4, and then you could start making this a weird shape that kind of looks like anything. You probably have to refer to a board to it. But this is how you really kind of customize the range of each piece. And so you can see over here, I defined the region for white piece custom piece 7, which was the trebuchet. And the trebuchet can't attack the 8th rank. That's because it's a cannon type piece, so being able to attack the 8th rank would basically let you kill the rook right away. And that's why I implemented this rule. So yeah, and those are all my special rules there. After that, I kind of defined my general rules, and I actually laid them out over here. So stalemate equals loss, and the code for that is stalemate value equals loss. Here I have flying generals, which is a rule from Xiangqi. The enemy kings can't face each other, so I set that to true. Here's something that occurs in a lot of my games, and it's campmate. So campmate, I basically define a flag piece, which is always going to be the king. And whenever this flag reaches a destination, you win the game. So in terms of white, that's reaching the 8th rank, any square on the 8th rank. I could have made it like just 2 squares. I could have said like E8 and D8, something like that. And that would just make it 2 squares to win. But in this case, it's the whole rank. And then black is the opposite, so star 1. All right, and then finally we have this next line, which is needed in every single variant definition, and that's your start fen. Your fen is basically your definition for how the pieces start on the board, and it uses this syntax over here where you start with the furthest away rank. So in a standard chessboard, that's the 8th rank, and then you move to the 7th rank, 6th rank, etc. Each rank is separated by slashes. So you'll see this is very familiar. Rook, knight, bishop, queen, king, bishop, knight, rook. These are the notations that you've assigned to these pieces. Slash, so we move to the next line. P, 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 P. So these are all the pawns lined up in a rank, and there are 8 of them. And you have to be very exact. If you're off by 1 P or you add another, then your definition is going to be messed up. Next up, we have a rank that just says 8. So 8 is the number of empty spaces in a row. If you want to have something like 2 pawns in the middle, then you could define something like 3PP3. So 3 blank spaces, then 2 pawns, and then 3 more blank spaces. If you want to have something like 2 pawns on each edge and then blank spaces in between, that would be P6P. If you want to have a space in between each one, then you could do something like this. P1, 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 P1. So that's how you account for spaces. And then finally, when I get to the 1st and 2nd ranks, I have the unique pieces for the white army. The other thing I forgot to mention is the capitalization. So first player, which is typically what we call white, those are using capital letters. And then the black player uses lowercase letters, so that's very important. The rest of these, I think this means it's white's turn to go first. Then we talk about things like castle rights, and these are typically things you don't have to change much. You're either going to have castle rights or you don't have them. So I think normally it would look something like this. You would have lowercase and capital. The K and the Q stands for the two rooks, the kingside rook and the queenside rook. In this case, the white player, which uses capital letters, doesn't even have a rook, so that's why I just deleted it. and the black player, being standard chess army, has lowercase k and q. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what these do. I think they refer to like en passant and other rules like that. You could look it up on Wikipedia what fens do. So yeah, that's basically all you need for defining a variant. Okay, next up I have the code from the original variants.ini file on the FairyStockfish GitHub. And here you could see that UBDib actually did a really good job just documenting everything and how to use variants.ini. So you should definitely want to download this if you want to use it as a basis. And here's just kind of guidelines on how to do things. Inheritance is what I was talking about, where you could inherit chess and then use all the rules for chess. In this section, he tells you all the piece types. So I talked about the chancellor earlier, and he tells you the name and then also its beta notation, just so you know how it works. And these are all the publicly defined ones that are available. And again, you can also define your custom pieces, and he tells you how to do that here. He tells you about all the limitations of beta notation in FairyStockfish here, and then so on and so forth. And you can kind of read this at your own leisure. Here we have some option types, and I haven't really used this section much, to be honest. All right, so going down. Here we go. Rule definition options. This is probably the most important part of this documentation. And these are basically every single option that you can define. So you can start with max rank and max file. If your board isn't going to be 8x8, then you're going to have to define this. Like if you wanted a 9x9, just say max rank equals 9, max file equals 9, and so forth. Mobility region I actually talked about, and here it goes into more detail. Like he gives examples like mobility region white rook, etc. Start fan, I already talked about that. Pawn types. As I said before, pawns are the pieces that kind of promote to a list of pieces. So if you have any different type of pawn, you're going to have to define it under pawn types here. Here we go, promotion region, white and black. We talked about that already. And there's just a whole slew of options over here. And usually what I like to do when designing a variant is just kind of read through these and see what interests me. Because sometimes I want to take something that's interesting here and make it a feature of my variant. So yeah, that's basically it. And then afterwards, you just kind of give some examples here, and you can browse through these to see how these different variants are also defined. In case you're still trying to figure out how the code works, look up a variant that you're very familiar with and try to backwards engineer it. Okay, so here's actually an interesting one. This is Shogun chess. This is one of the variants actually the very first variant I've made. And the reason why I want to show this one is in Shogun chess, pieces promote just like in shogi. So each piece has its own unique promotion. And what's especially interesting is that you start with the standard chessboard and your queen is actually already promoted. So when your opponent captures your queen, it demotes into a much weaker piece. So the next question is, how do you code the start fen for this? So you can't use the letter Q. The Q is actually the promoted form. Whenever a piece is promoted, it gets a plus in front of it. So in Shogun chess, the queen uses the furs as its demoted form. So when we put this in the start fen, it's actually just plus F. So here you can see plus F. And then down here, you can see some other regions that define, so white drop region and black drop region. So again, since Shogun chess is kind of like shogi, where you get to drop pieces, these are the regions defining where you can actually drop pieces. This is again something you want to keep in mind if you're designing something to meet the contest theme, which is regions, right? So now you finally made your variant and you defined it in variants.ini. How are you going to test it? Well, there's multiple ways you could do it. We have different scripts where you can have the engine play against the engine. And I use one that's like a tournament mode, and I have the engine play each other like 100 times or even 1,000 times. And that's how you can tell if an engine is balanced. If you're pretty new to designing variants here, then getting Python set up and getting the script running might be above your level. So once you have everything working, then you could just send it to someone in the chat, like me or AutoCore, and then we could test it for you. But here's a website you could use, fairyground.versal.app, and here you just choose your variants file. This is from your computer, and once you plug it in, you're gonna choose it, and then here you can just kind of choose a list of variants. So I didn't choose my variants.ini, and if I did, then there would be a whole lot more options to choose from here. What you're gonna do is choose one, and it tries its best to pick pieces for you, and in this case, shogi pieces are already available, but if you have a completely new variant, which is most likely going to happen, it's just going to choose some random variant for you. And then here you define your settings, so what you want to do is have engine play against engine, or if you want, you can play against the engine too, and then define your time settings. So typically you want something that's not too long, you want to have something that's relatively fast so that you can see how the game works. So let's say something like 10,000 milliseconds, which is 10 seconds starting time. And the computer gains 100 milliseconds after each move. So we'll do the same thing for both sides. And then after that, you can just hit start game. And you can watch them play against each other. So this is a great way to test your game and see if it's working. Make sure everything's working as you intended. See if you run across any errors. And then also see if the computer does something that you didn't expect and completely breaks the game. So this is a really good place to start. All right, I'm just gonna let this run for a couple more seconds and then abort the game. Okay, so that's basically it. That was just a very quick run through. If you have any other questions, just feel free to ask in Discord.